Talk about wealth. Some people are wealthy, some are not. How do you create wealth? And how do you manage wealth? This is Now Tell Us, and I'm your host, Anthony Moirore. Today we have a guest who's going to tell us exactly that: wealth creation and wealth management, and much more. His name is Bob Chitrathorn, and he's going to be here shortly. And let me take this time to remind you to please share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question on wealth, please ask because Bob will be happy to answer you. If you have a comment to make as we are moving on, we appreciate feedback. So we'll be very glad to see a comment from you. And now, without taking one more minute, why don't you join me as we go together to meet our guest today, Bob Chitrathon. Here we go. Hello, Bob.
Hey Anthony, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to see you.
Yeah, great. Happy Friday.
Yes, thank you, and welcome to Now Tell Us.
Thanks for
Yes,
having me.
yeah, we are happy to see you, and we love, this is a topic that we do love. And it's good to have you here because we know that you're going to tell us a lot of what we need to hear. Maybe something that we may not want to hear, but need to, because I know some things are not as easy as and as sweet as we would want them to be sweet. But I don't know. I actually don't know what lies ahead. So you'll dive us into that. But before we go there, we would like to know who is Bob Chitrathon.
My parents grew up in Bangkok, Thailand. They immigrated to the U.S. in 1974. Shortly after that, they had me a few years later. Um, and we lived modestly. I grew up in a mobile home park. My mom was a nurse, my dad a factory worker, and they worked really hard to try to thrive for that or strive for that American dream, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up putting me through and my sister into private school, right? Which obviously it's expensive, so they worked really hard. And we're just felt blessed that we had a place to live while they're able to put us through private school. Grew up through that system sometime in my early ages, probably about 10 or 11, I realized that, you know, Bob Chitrathorn's life was a little bit different than everybody else that he went to school with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of these kids were kids of doctors and surgeons and things of that nature. And so when I would go to their house, I would consider them mansions. Like they were big, giant houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt blessed to be there. And I never ever thought anything different about where we grew up or where we lived, right? It was just I was excited to go on Fridays to go to their house after school and spend a day with them, hanging out, playing around at their house, right? And I was always appreciative. And one thing my mom always taught me is education is money in the bank that no one can ever take away from you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's literally compounds, right? As you
Yeah.
keep learning and learning upon learning, it's exponentially compounding. And, I think that's always been in my mind and kind of helped me keep me on the course to, go where I need to go. And one of the things I realized a long time ago is, again, we didn't grow up from money per se, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
remember this table and I was playing with a jelly jar, just sliding it back and forth on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, I missed. It fell, it hit the metal prong of the table and shattered.
Mm.
I felt so bad. And I didn't feel bad for, hey, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get, disciplined for that? I
Yeah.
felt bad because I was afraid that that was going to start an argument between my parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because most people argue about money.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh, how much was that cost? How expensive was that? All the jelly beans are wasted. Now mom and dad got to go buy me and my sister new jelly beans, if they wanted to, and that's money. And then the glass. And so I think it was at that point that I became very cautious,
Mm-hmm.
and knowledgeable in the sense of paying attention to the value of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I would go to my friend's house again, and again, they have nice, expensive things. And sometimes they would give me, hey, Bob, I got an extra shirt, right? I
Mm-hmm.
didn't see it as a hand me down. I saw it as I just received something of value, right? I'm going to cherish this. And
Yeah.
so growing up, I think that I've always just kind of had that value and kind of respecting the value of, the dollar or whatever it is, whatever, like a coloring book.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that one of my friends had like 15 coloring books. Like, oh my goodness, you have so many coloring books. Like, oh, you want a couple? I don't even look at them. I said, what? For free? I was excited. So I think that kind of started my journey of being thinking about finances without
Yeah.
me actually knowing it at that point in time. And so I guess that's kind of where Bob Chitrathorn grew up. Went to high school, then I went to college. I actually got a ride for my first year of college. After that, they wanted $17,000. Didn't have that money. So I
Mm.
went to Cal State San Bernardino, where I graduated with my BS in finance and my BS in real estate. And once I graduated, I started my career as a financial advisor, and it's been 18 plus years now.
Wow. 18 plus years. That's wonderful. So you've got a wealth of information to share with us here with that kind of experience.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And now looking back at the experiences you are having when you are growing up and the luck that you didn't imagine you had, but then now you realize that you were in luck. How does it feel?
Honestly, it feels good because again, one thing I always remember, and I'm glad my mom taught me this: education again is money in the bank, and that's kind of been the core of everything and keeps me grounded, right? So being able to look back on the good, the bad, was it good, was it bad? Who doesn't matter. It shaped me to who I am today, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel blessed about it. I feel really blessed because I actually had the opportunity to look back and notice the difference, notice what changed me, notice what molded me to who I am today. Where I'm not saying that if you didn't have those experiences, it doesn't mean that you don't know where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, it's just being able to look back when we were, didn't have much material things, and to see where I've been now and how I can help my family, my friends, the people around me, my community. It gives me, it might give me a little too much pride, but I'm very prideful of that because you see the difference, you got to see the other side,
Yeah.
and I
And
appreciate that.
how has been your journey in growing the wealth that you may have been?
Well, the journey is very simple. I try to teach all my clients is, hey, I'm not telling anyone to do something I wouldn't do myself.
Okay.
Most of the time, I will do it first,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to tell any of my clients about it because why share something that doesn't work? But when it comes to building wealth, there's many different areas of how you start building wealth. Whether you start saving younger when you're young, get the
Mm-hmm.
compounding of interest, get that mindset of, hey, I need to save, right? That's one way of doing it. For other people who are, later on in life, if they're now wanting to, hey, I need to do something to try to build wealth now. I don't have the luxury of starting when I was in my 20s, like some people did, right? What
Mm-hmm.
do I do now? Well, you still have plenty of time. You just need to be efficient and diligent about it. I
Mm-hmm.
can ask you, and don't answer this rhetorical question, but I can ask anybody watching, how much do you spend per month on coffee? I bet you most people won't know.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, I think it's about this. I think it's about that. I think it's about, whatever it is. Well, one of the things I challenge people is, how are you supposed to improve something you don't know?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you need to kind of keep track. And
Mm-hmm.
people think it's hard. And I'd say, don't make it difficult, make it easy. For 1 month, keep track how much you spend at um, going out to eat, or 1 month, how much you spend, you know, on coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is not necessarily a necessity. Just pick one thing, pay attention to it for 1 month. You will be shocked. You
Mm-hmm.
will probably look at yourself and say, I spend $150 a month on coffee. What do I have to show for it?
Mm-hmm.
30 empty cups on the floor of your car, right? Whereas if you took that money, I'm not saying change your lifestyle. Like if you save $75 a month and spent $75 a month on coffee instead of 150, that money is going to compound and can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just really starting with take a look at yourself, right? You can't say, oh, I can't save because of this, or I can't do this because of that until you take a look at yourself. And then if you say, hey, you know what? I literally spend every penny I make on necessities, then that's a different story. We'll figure
Mm-hmm.
something different out, right? But most people just have not taken an inner look at themselves to see what they're truly doing with their dollars. And I always tell people that's where you got to start. Know what you're doing now.
Know what you're doing now. Yeah, and I agree with you because if you don't know your position where you are right now, then you don't know the direction to your destination where you need to be tomorrow or an
Mm-hmm.
hour from now. So it's good to identify the position that you stand in order that you can move ahead. So I agree to that. Now, you've met so many people with who come that this is your clients and they come for your help. Uh, and we like stories. Have you had a funny story along the way? What was the funny story that you've experienced dealing with your clients?
Funny. Okay, let me think. A lot of my clients are funny because I think I'm funny, so I get along with clients I think they're funny,
Yeah.
right? My wife, if she heard this, she would roll her eyes. Bob thinks he's funny. Yeah. Um, but I guess the funny story is okay. I have a good recent one.
Mm,
A very well-to-do um, lady, a client of mine. She grew up, Old Town, worked hard, migrated here as well, became a nurse, was in the nursing field for many, many years, and just kind of went up the ranks, right?
mm-hmm.
And you would see her, and everybody would see her as the nurse boss, right? The
Yeah.
boss of all these other nurses, and loved her. She's really nice, great time. I actually took her out one night, and we went to dinner. I reserved a room, and went to dinner, and I actually got her to get up on the table and dance with me.
Mm,
And that was pretty funny because everybody was laughing. Like the people that she worked with just couldn't imagine that she was letting loose because at work she's always focus, 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 right? But she
mm-hmm.
was retiring, so it was kind of her retirement party, if you will. So I thought
Okay.
that was pretty funny.
Wow. So even when we are talking about creation of wealth and management of wealth, it's not all work and no play for Jack. There's gonna be some play along the line along
You got to
some.
balance.
There's a you've got to have a balance. So there's the serious job, the serious work, and then there is the entertainment. Like you talk about coffee, then coffee is not a daily necessity. So that I am going to look at it and spend everything that I have earned on it. I've got to balance. And again, I like the idea that you suggest. I don't drop coffee, but I look at the investment or the amount of money that I'm going to spend on my coffee. So the serious saving and living life. How do you balance? How do you just balance that? Because you talk about balancing. How do you balance everything?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I mean, when it talks about, let's talk about balance of finances, right?
Yeah.
And again, let's just assume you have to drink your coffee every day,
Mm,
okay? Right? Do you have to spend the money on Starbucks? Does it have to be Starbucks? No, it doesn't. If you have to drink coffee, let's face it, you're addicted to caffeine.
mm,
Okay, you can make your own coffee at home. Get one of those thermoses and reuse it over time and time. So this way, the balance there is now you're balancing, not changing your life drastically. You still get to indulge in your coffee, but now you're saving money for the future. That's
mhm,
balance. But then there's also balance in going out and having fun, right? A lot of times I like to enjoy myself with my friends and I like to treat my friends, right?
mm,
But you can't always treat if you're not saving. So I always tell people is, the joy that you get from hanging out with your friends and your family and be able to take them out to dinner all starts with you being balanced,
mhm.
right? Because if you do that all the time and you don't take care of yourself, eventually you're not going to have money to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You fell on the wrong side.
Mm,
If you save and save and save and never take your friends out or your family out, and that's something you want to do, well, you may have a lot of money eventually, but you don't have joy,
mm,
right? You don't have what does money do if it doesn't help you bring joy? You need to do good with it, right? So it brings you joy, right? It's money in itself. It's not joyful. It's smelly. It's dirty. You know what I mean? Like, um, so you got to have that balance. And so I always tell people, whatever it is you're doing, whatever your lifestyle is, it doesn't have to change. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out what balance you can actually do that doesn't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that balance, I'll tell you, it becomes addicting. You want to keep saving so that you can do more of the balanced stuff. You realize how fun it is. It becomes a habit, right? For instance, we talked about how much people spend on coffee or whatnot. I can literally tell you, if you asked me how much I spent on gas or how much I spent on movies or how much I spent on whatever it is for the month or year to date, I can literally pull up my phone and tell you because I track it all.
Mm-hmm.
I spent $5 for an app that there's no monthly fee. I just bought it for $4.99, and I started tracking my expenses, so I know. And now I do it without even it's not even thought. Right? At first, it was like, oh man, I got to pull out my phone. I got to do this. Right? Now it's automatic, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so automatic that like if I just hit three buttons, if I put GA, it says gas, and it knows I'm at whatever gas station, and then I track how much I spend.
Mm-hmm.
So it sometimes what it seems like you're taking away from your life to make some sort of balance actually improves your balance in the future.
Wow, that's very good. We have one of our viewers who's listening and has a contribution to make towards this, towards balancing. Then she says, Mishka, thank you very much for submitting that comment. The only way I learned how to manage my money was when I lost everything. I used to live so extravagantly and I was always in debt. I am grateful. Now I know how to balance my lifestyle. It's more fun to literally live off $5 rather than 5,000 a week. LOL.
That's a great comment. I love that. You know why? Because what happened there is she saw the one side, now she went to the other side, and now she loves balance, right? Because
Mhm.
when you let's talk $5,000 a week, right? You're spending money that you're not paying attention to,
Yeah.
right? It just doesn't click in your whole aura of your personality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you give yourself a budget, you know, I personally don't think I can live on $5 a week, but when you give yourself a budget, you feel better about yourself. You feel like you're disciplining yourself. You feel
Mm-hmm.
like you're putting more in your own life to better yourself, to understand what you're doing, and you
Mm-hmm.
understand more on what you're spending. And it's like when you go work out, right? Hey, I'm a little chubby. I'm going to work out. You feel better about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
same thing when you try to manage money, you feel better because you're understanding where your money goes and what you're doing with it. So
Mm-hmm.
your life is just going to feel better with it, with balance.
Okay, that's very good. Now, we talk about saving, and I've had this thought, and it's good to hear it from an experienced person in this field, is that saving money will not make you wealthy. How is that true? If not true, what would you suggest? What are the different ways, and which is the best one you would suggest?
Well, let's talk about what is wealth.
Okay.
I mean, to answer that question, Anthony, what is wealth to you? Is it having a pile of money, or is it being able to do this, do that? I mean, it all depends on what wealth is. But again, whatever that is in your mind of what wealth is, let's just pick something. Let's just say wealthy is, having an extra $1,000 a month that you can do whatever you want with,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't matter how much you make. Well, it does, but you have to figure out what your budget is. If
Mm-hmm.
that's what wealth is to you, then we got to figure out how do we get there.
Yeah.
Maybe wealth to somebody is, hey, I want to be able to save $500 a month. Okay, if that's what wealth is, let's look at your budget. Let's look at what you're spending. Let's look at what you need or don't need. And then all of a sudden we can figure out, hey, you actually can save $500 a month if you cut this, cut that. There we go. There's one aspect of your personal wealth that you can
Mm-hmm.
save that now. Now we go to the next step. Someone might say, well, wealth to me is not just being able to save now, but being able to retire at age 65.
Mm-hmm.
And when I retire at 65, to make sure I have all my expenses paid and an extra $500 a month to have fun with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what we just did? We did one thing already. when you save $500 a month, when you retire, you don't have to save that $500 a month anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's going to be the $500 a month that you get to spend, to do whatever you want to do. So now we
Mm-hmm.
just need to figure out, how do we save so that when you do retire, you can generate the same income that you are now. So to get to whatever wealth is to you, there's various steps, because wealth to a person is, to me, I think it always changes, right? If you haven't saved at all and you have no money in the bank, well, guess what? Let's build your emergency fund. Let's get your bank account to $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to $1,000, guess what? That person is now wealthy. They've never had $1,000 before.
Mm-hmm.
Now they do. So to me, that is wealth. But
Mm-hmm.
now, guess what? Now that they have $1,000, Anthony, what is the next step for them to consider themselves wealthy? Right? You can't compare yourself to others. That is never going to work. You have to figure out what wealth is to you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I teach a lot of my clients is, let's figure out what wealth is to you, and let's build a plan for you. Let's not chase the Joneses style of wealth. Let's not change the Joneses style of retirement.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what you want. And what
Mm-hmm.
I always ask my clients is this: imagine I gave you $1 million, Anthony, okay, and you
Mm-hmm.
cannot save any of it. You have to spend it all, okay?
Yeah.
They will say, I would go traveling. I would do this. I would take my family on a big European cruise, all these things. Well, I just made them list what would make them feel wealthy,
Mm.
right? They didn't know it,
Yeah.
but I just said, hey, okay, so now let's build a plan. Let's start saving for those things.
Uh-huh.
If we can save for those things, your wealth it got closer to being obtainable and achieved,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Yeah.
once we have enough money to do those things, let's figure out what else you want to do. It's all about starting somewhere. Again, starting with $1,000. If you don't have $1,000 in the bank, let's get you to $1,000, and that should make you feel wealthy because you never had it before, but now you do.
Mm.
And let's take it to the next step. Again, it's small baby steps, and that's what I teach my clients, and explain to them. Don't have a preconceived notion of what you think wealth is. What is
Mm.
wealth to you? Figure it out, and then let's start there.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. That's very good. And but I also guess that you're dealing with the big steps in your. I mean, you have some clients who are dealing with big figures, big ideas. Uh, which are they? How? What experience can someone expect if he's looking forward? Someone who's dreaming big and is looking forward to have the figures, big figures.
Okay, well, let's talk about efficiency, which comes up a lot, right? A lot of people have money saved in their retirement plans, right? And some of the things that people just don't pay attention to,
Mm.
they pay attention to the fact that when they started working, someone said, hey, get a retirement plan. Perfect. They opened it.
Yeah.
They started putting money into it. Now it's out of sight, out of mind. They look at their statements every now and then. But guess what they're not paying attention to that they should be? Are you being as efficient? You're already saving the money. You already have that plan open, but is it doing as well as it could be? Most people don't look at that. So let's take a quick look. It takes 10 minutes. Let's see if it's doing as well as it could be for what you need. If it's
Yeah.
not, spend a couple of minutes. We'll make changes and adjustments. It doesn't take a lot of work, right? So that's one area I tell people, hey, this is what we need to do. And then when we're talking about, having big giant dreams, I have clients that have, lots and lots of money, right? But the thing that they also have to learn, just like anybody else, is no matter how much money you have, it's very easily that you can spend it all and then have nothing,
Mm.
right? So that's where, again, we go back to balance and knowing what it is you want to achieve and what you can achieve, right? If you're going to spend, you know, I always like to tell people, if you use a credit card, there should be 2 to 3 things you do with that credit card. Okay.
Mm.
And this is something it took me a long time to do. And I
Mm.
will be honest, I'm honest. Um, Even since I've been a financial advisor for 18 years, I didn't actually start doing this till about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I was still decent with my own personal finances and money and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But I wasn't perfect.
Okay.
So now when it comes to a credit card, here's what I do every Friday. I did it before we had this call. I look at my credit cards, I pay them off
Mm-hmm.
every Friday. So when
Every.
I spend money on every Friday,
Yeah.
so when I spend money, Every time I spend money, I spend it as if it was cash. I use my
Mhm.
credit card as if it was cash. So when I swipe my credit card and it's $45 at Target, guess what I go? I go into my phone and I say checking account $45 less.
Mhm.
Even though it hasn't hit yet in my bank account, it hasn't shown that I'm $45 less, but in my phone and in my mind, I'm $45 less. So
Mm.
therefore I can't overspend
Okay.
because I kept track, right? So now every week I pay off my credit cards and have a zero balance. So I teach people, hey, if you're not doing that, let's try to change your mind, your attitude a little bit, and let's try to make that one of your goals, because that in itself will help you figure out that you can save a lot more money than you think you can if you
Mm.
have credit card debt.
Wow. Thank you for that. And I still think there could be someone out there who's interested in an extra idea about investments other than just saving. I mean, someone has, and I know there are different avenues of investments. Uh, have you had any experiences with them personally, or maybe worked with some of your clients who are in a different investment plan, or has many different ideas that he's working on?
Yeah, so I think what you're asking me here is when we're talking about different ideas, we're just talking about different type of investments, right?
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
so much putting money in the savings account or the bank account. Yeah, there's lots of different types of investments, right?
Hmm.
I'm not going to make any type of recommendation because everyone's situation is different. But you can have what they call structured CDs,
Okay.
right? There's CDs out there that are tied to the market. So if the market goes doesn't go down more than say 30%, you're going to get a coupon or interest payment every month.
Hmm.
It's like a basic CD at the bank, but it's tied differently. There's mutual funds, right? Mutual funds pulls people dollars for investments. There's mutual funds out there that actually date back to like the 1930s and have really great rate of returns,
Hmm.
right? But what happens, a lot of people just don't know that they exist, or they're afraid.
Hmm.
I've heard this so many times. Bob, I don't want to invest in the stock market. It's too risky,
Mm.
right? And I
Yeah.
said, what do you mean the stock market's too risky? They said, well, this company used to be worth this much, now it's not worth that much.
Hmm.
Okay, well, that's one company, one stock.
Yeah.
Oh, but I hear the stock market went down, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the stock market goes up and down. But if you look at the history of it, it, it goes, I mean, it's not flat. There's a bunch of this, right? But
Yeah.
compare it to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. We're definitely higher than where it was,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So it's, to me, it's like saying, I'm not going to drive a car because I'm afraid to hit traffic.
Mm.
We're gonna run into traffic, right? It's
Mm.
going to happen. But at the end of the day, as long as you're driving a good amount of miles,
Yeah.
you're going to be better off driving in a car than riding your bicycle,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I use that example because a lot of people say, oh, I keep money in the bank because it never goes down, right?
Hmm.
But guess what? It doesn't keep up with inflation. You can't buy as much with those same dollars later. So
Yeah.
literally, it did go down. You just didn't see it that way.
Mm.
So knowledge and education is something I focus a lot on. And so when I say, okay, you're at the bank, you don't want to invest in the stock market because it's too risky. Is it is it too risky for you to keep losing money without you seeing it? They always say yes. Now let's figure out how do we keep up with inflation and not take too much risk for you. And sometimes it's just education, understanding, because if you don't understand something, it's always risky,
Yeah. Anything that you
right?
don't understand is
It,
dangerous.
driving a stick shift for me is very risky. I do
Yeah.
not know how to do it.
Hmm.
But if I practice and did it over and over, then it's not going to be risky for me. It can
You're
actually
going.
be to my advantage.
Yeah. So Mishka talks about, or is asking, that's conservative versus aggressive investor. That's a question.
Yeah, so I mean, there are conservative investors that don't really want as big of roller coasters. Even though from point A to point B, it could be we can all see and we can track it and say, hey, you know what? An aggressive one's gonna end up higher over
Hmm.
time. It all depends on what your time frame is. A more conservative one may be like this, from here to here, right?
Hmm.
But it depends on what type of ride you're capable of, what
Yeah.
type of time frame you have, right?
Hmm.
If the
Hmm.
market goes down, do you have time to recover? If you don't, then we should probably be a lot more conservative,
Hmm.
right? And so when it comes to being aggressive or conservative, it's not just a type of person, it also deals with time frame. Because I can have an aggressive, um, older client, right?
Yeah.
Everything they do is aggressive. They ride dirt bikes, they rode motorcycles, they're extremists. They wanted to put all their money and make a bunch of money or lose a bunch of money. But guess what? They don't have enough time to do that. So
Hmm.
sometimes, even if you're aggressive, you have to be conservative. Sometimes, if you're conservative, you have to be more aggressive. It depends on your goals. If you
Hmm.
want to get from here to here, and you want to say, all I want to do is keep my money in the bank, and we run as many scenarios as you want, and it shows that you're to get here, well, okay, we're meeting you being conservative, but
Hmm.
how are you going to get here? Something has to change, right? It is, do you become more aggressive? Do your investments become more aggressive? So there's always, again, going back, there's always a balance, and the balance comes from knowing what it is you want to achieve, understanding how you can get there,
Hmm.
understanding what you're doing now and where that's going to get you, and comparing the difference,
Wow.
and then just working little by little to get better.
That's very good. Now, going back to credit cards, Mishka
Mm-hmm.
says that she no longer owns a credit card or use them. She doesn't. Is that good or bad? Because she found that for her, it's a way of policing herself and maintaining her not spending what she doesn't have.
So it's good to me. It's good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's great that she's has zero credit card debt. That's amazing. She's disciplined. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I know she's disciplined, but what she needs to understand is if she had a credit card, would all of a sudden would she be in lots of debt? Does she have enough discipline to keep herself um, out of debt with the credit card? Right? Because when you don't have a credit card, there's a couple things you don't have. You don't have a company that sees a credit history,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you ever wanted to get a loan of some sort, they want to know that you have a credit history, that you have actually made payments on time or
Yeah.
kept a zero balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, the, my credit score is almost at 850. Not quite, but it's pretty close, right? 850 is the best you can get.
Okay.
But I can't say for a fact, but if I didn't have any credit cards, I don't know if I'd be anywhere close to that because it wouldn't have a track record of any type of historical debt and paying it off over and over and keeping myself out of debt, right? When you
Okay.
have an instrument that can get you in debt, but you're not ever in debt, if you were lending me money, wouldn't that look really good to you? Like, oh my goodness, Bob has all this access to get himself in debt, but he's never gotten himself in debt for 10 years,
Wow.
right? And see, that's a good credit score. That's a really good credit score. That's actually considered excellent credit score. So if you're good with that and you don't have credit cards and you don't have credit card debt, why get yourself a credit card to potentially get you in debt accidentally in case you're not as disciplined as you want to be, right? If you're happy with your credit score like that, I won't repeat what she said or showed, but if you're happy with that credit score, I wouldn't get a credit card
Mm.
because there's always that potential that, hey, you get a credit card and you say, oh, I'm going to pay it off. Oh, I was out of town, I forgot. And then all of a sudden it goes to the next week and you added more. Now that number is bigger and you're just afraid to take that money from your bank account. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'll pay half of it. Boom, now you're in debt. It's so easy to snowball backwards.
Yeah, and she appreciates your feedback. Yes, she says that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
and again, anytime you'll get my contact information after this, feel free to email me. I love answering questions. This is my passion. I'm not just a financial advisor for a career path and to have a career for myself. I literally feel that this is what I'm supposed to do because most advisors that are 18 plus years in the business, most of them, I can't speak for everybody, but most of them don't work 40-hour a week. I work
mm,
about 55 hours a week
wow.
because literally I have so many things I want to do, so many things I want to teach the world about finances, so many touch points. Like this is one of them, right?
Mhm.
This is a great touch point that if someone hears one thing that helps them get better at finances, well, to me, I just made the world a better place by helping them. And now they're going to help somebody else. And the world is just going to get better that way. At least
Wow.
that's my belief.
That's
Might be a
that's
little,
that's very beautiful. And
yeah.
that's why we appreciate you coming to now tell us today and for everything that you've told us so far. We appreciate you.
Anytime, anytime. I love doing whatever I can. I just again I'm very passionate about it. There's just so many little things that everybody can do that's easy, that will put them in a better place. It's just they haven't heard about it, or they don't know about it, or they just don't think about it.
Yeah. And how can people follow up with you once we are through here?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest place to follow up with me is if you go to my website, planwithbobinfo.com, planwithbobinfo.com. That will lead you to my financial website. It has all my contact information. I'm still adding more to it, so I'll have some more articles and blogs. Again, my website probably has 100 articles of various things: estate planning, investment planning, life planning, family planning. So that's probably the best place to go to get my info. You'll be able to get everything there.
Beautiful. www.planwithbobinfo.com.
Yep.
Yeah, so Mishka, thank you for the questions. And you can always follow up with Bob and everyone else who's listening or watching. We really appreciate you taking your time and being with us as we learn together. Follow up with Bob at www, as we said it, planwithbobinfo.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are coming to the end of the show. But before we go, we'd like you to leave us with a few words that we should always remember. Which are they?
A few words that you should always remember. I don't think you can be happy until you help someone else be happy.
Wow. You might not be happy unless you help someone else be happy. Those are very good words. We appreciate you sharing that with us. So let's all make it to make others happy, and then we are going to be happy. Bob, you made us happy today. And as
I'm
Mishka
glad.
says, yes. And every listener and taking Mishka as one who is speaking for all of you who are watching, we hope that you have enjoyed this show. We appreciate you. And thank you, Mishka. And thank you, everyone else. So bye for now. This has been Now Tell Us. I'm Anthony Muirore, your host, and our guest today, Bob Chitrathorn. Together, we are all saying bye, create wealth, and manage it. Have a great day. Bye.